Welcome everybody to SJGames Live. Welcome on in. My name's Jimmy. I'm here today. Oh, I've got to turn that down or I'm going to hear myself as an echo. All right. Stop laughing, Will. Today we've got just myself, Brandon behind the camera, and we have Will joining us in Discord to
Hi.
talk about. Hey, Will, welcome on in. Will is currently the Car Wars line editor, among other things.
A few other titles.
And we
Yeah.
were talking about today. We're doing maybe the first in this series. We're calling Car Wars Deep Drives, where we talk about a specific subject or mechanic in the game. Today we're going to talk about drop weapons in Car Wars. So right now, you can get the drop weapons in the existing drop weapons pack that came out for Car Wars, and there are some variant rules for it in the companion guide, the Car Wars Companion, which is if you backed that in one of our projects you've got. Will's got a copy there because he was involved with it just a little bit.
Just,
Uh,
my camera
just,
won't focus on my name, but yeah, just a little bit.
just a bit. And then several of these things, if you don't have them already, a lot of the Car Wars stuff we are going to be repackaging or collating, regathering it into standalone products starting later this year. And one of those packs is going to be called Tailgate Trouble, which is going to be mostly drop weapons.
Yep.
But this is a subject we want to touch on because a lot of people, I feel like, give an initial glance at them and go, "Oh, those aren't very much," and just ignore them. And I think that ignoring a very good tactical option you can have in the game. For a lot of cases. Let's see, Jedi Kaya, welcome on back. Thank you for another 6 months of subscription. We really appreciate that. Not needed, but very much appreciated. Welcome on in. Glad to have you back as always. Depleted Uranium Cowboy, how's it going? Good to see you here. See the Car Wars folks turn out for the Car Wars streams is always good. So today dropped weapons are what's on the docket. So there's a few different types, and the main feature of all of these weapons is that they are deployed by dropping them next to your car. So let's start off with how does that look on the table when you drop one of these weapons. So you're going to have a weapon card assigned as usual to one side of your car. One of the features about drop weapons cards, they cannot be put on the front side of your car because you would drive over what you're about to drop. So these can only be applied to the sides or back of your vehicle. Howitzer Explosion Guy, welcome in. Yep, more Car Wars. Goodrich Games, welcome in. How's it going? Tentative Pyramid Magazine Design Contest back in the 90s for Inwell and One. Launched a 30-year game design career. Well, congratulations. We're glad we could get you started. And yeah, glad to have you in here. Oh, yeah, 6 is a great reboot. I hope you're enjoying it. So you're going to assign weapons to the side or rear of your car. There's in the 6th edition of the game, there are 3 types of item that you can drop as far as physical forms. One is going to be an actual card itself. In this case, it would be like spikes, which I'm going to drop over here. Which this is just I'll hold by this corner up here.
This is down by the cars.
This is a spikes card. We'll put it down next. Yeah, we're going to go down next to the cars here, because what we're going to show you is here. So a card is one type of thing that you could drop. Some of these are spikes, wreckage, smoke, a few other things like that come in the card form. Foam is one of the things you drop that comes in a token form. And the last type of thing we drop is a mine, which you can zoom out or over just a little bit, Brandon. There we go. So a mine is the other type. So these are the 3 types of tokens that you'll be dropping. When you drop them, they go, the 2 main things about the placement. They go in line with that side of the car, centered on the part of the base that has the little targeting arc marker. So, for example, the mine is centered on that marker here. This card is going to take up most of the length of the base anyway, and it's centered on it here. Same thing with the back. It's going to be centered on. These are almost the full size of the token. The other feature about when you drop them is you drop them one width of the turning key away from the car. So they're not physically touching you, but they are almost right up on you.
Yeah, and that is because most of them are triggered if they have a bad effect by contacting a car. So you don't want to place
Right.
them touching you, or your mind would blow up the second you put it on the table.
Right. So they're right against you, but they're right near you, but they're not actually against you. So they're that one width of the turning key away from your car. So that is how you place any of them, depending on either side they go. You're not going to do them out here like this. We're not going to drop them like that across the back. They go in line with the car like that, and centered on that little wedge that marks the firing arcs on each of the bases. Don't press too hard on the spikes card. So the other feature that like I was talking about, most of these are triggered by when opponents run into them. The cards are different. The cards have the feature on them. You can see it better maybe on a different one here. Flip this over. You see a little better on this one is that it's got this arrow symbol on it here, which is a drive over feature. So that icon means this is not something you collide with. This is something you drive over. So if you're moving, you'll hold down the card and move or drive over it as needed. The other symbols on the cards are important. Some of them will have no cover modifiers at all. Some of them will give full cover. Some of them will give partial cover. So, for example, the foam is a light obstacle. So if you hit it, it's just gonna get destroyed. But it does provide full cover. This is a drive over. It has no cover modifiers at all. This is something you would actually collide with because it's an actual raised token. So those are some of the features you're going to be looking for when you place these down as to how they're going to interact with the game when you come into contact with them. The volume difference between Jimmie and Will makes it hard to watch this.
I'm turning it down a bit, so.
Yeah, Brandon's altering Will's volume downwards some.
Okay.
All right. So that is how placement of these things work, which is important to know. Like when you're moving, that's how it's going to go. Now, in the current rules of the game, all of these weapon cards take one of your weapon actions to fire. In the companion, there is a variant rule that I believe, Will, if you've got the companion handy, could you read the variant rule for it?
So on page 87, there is an optional rules section. And in that rules section, there are some attack modifications. And one of those is called enhanced dropped weapons. It says during the movement phase, you may drop one of your equipped drop weapons after each of your movement points. This does not count as an attack. So when you take a turn, you get movement points equal to your speed. So if you're going 4 speed, you get 4 movement points. And this alternate rule allows you to make a movement point and then decide to drop a weapon. And the reason that is because all the dropped weapons have a resource stack effectively attached to them. Most guns in the game are either one shot or infinite shots. These are usually 4 shots. So
yeah, all the ones I've got here are they give when you get the weapon, you get 4 tokens with it, and that is how many times you can use the weapon.
Yeah. So you can burn through all your dropped weapons pretty quick with this rule, but it makes it flexible. And we were testing to see if it was too powerful, since you can only do it 4 times in an entire game, generally, per weapon.
Right. So it is limited, and then most of these, in fact, I think let me check real quick. Almost all of these dropped weapons are 1-pointers.
Yeah.
So they are very situational most of the time, and that's why I think a lot of people, when they look at them initially, and we're gonna go through them here, but when a lot of people look at them, they go, "Oh, that doesn't do much," and they'll go, this little token is real easy to avoid on the map. What's the point? And they don't bother with the weapon. And it's true. This is easy to avoid, especially if you drop it, especially without the alternate rule. You're dropping it, on your firing phase, and then someone else has to come by and hit it. Yeah, it's real easy to avoid that. Now, the thing about that is it's just not about what this token can do to them. What this token can do to them is the deterrent, which means you're going to drop this, and they're probably not going to hit it, but they're going to alter their course. They're going to go somewhere else they weren't intending to go. You get to encourage them to go a different direction, to avoid part of the map, to have to slow down and make a harder turn because there's an obstacle or something. These are as much about area denial as to what they can actually do to the other cars. And it's a way to exercise some control over the arena against your opponents. And I think that part of it gets overlooked a lot when people are initially looking at spending their points for the cars, like how much damage can this gun do to somebody, how much damage can this gun do to somebody, how much damage can this missile do, and they go, yeah, but they're just going to avoid it. Why would I waste the point? And because they're not seeing in the moment that it is about arena control.
Yeah, it also varies a lot depending on what kind of game you're playing. If you're playing a last car running wins parking lot battle, like what's sitting in front of Jimmie right now, then dropping one little tiny half-inch token in that 3x3 space is not going to do a lot. But the companion book is full of all kinds of scenarios where you have to do specific things, like drive over specific cards or go through specific places on the map. And if I can put something down, even if it's just a foam that blocks line of sight between a couple of walls or something, well, then I change the entire way that the map is working and what's going on during the game.
Exactly. If you've got it a setup here, where you say even in a 3x3 space, right? You set up a small bit of obstacles, right? Even that adds a lot of things to maneuver around and do line of sight around and everything else,
Yeah.
right? And then if you start, okay, there's that, and then someone has dropped spikes there, and an oil slick here, and a couple of mines through here. Suddenly, you may be going around this entire 15 by 15 section in the middle of the board because it's just not worth trying to go through all that. And that's just with 4 people have dropped something, or one person has dropped up to 4 things in there, and suddenly it's not worth trying to go through that. Or say someone had dropped a couple of foam tokens through here, and suddenly there's line of sight issues all over the place, and you're fighting around the edges of this instead of just going straight at each other. So even a little bit of this, if there's any obstacles in the arena at all, can do a lot. Even if there's no obstacles in the arena, these are all roughly the same size as the foam token. So if someone came through and fired off foam after each of their movements, suddenly there's a wall, and because foam is a no line of sight, they've eliminated a lot of firing arcs just across the middle of the board in the first turn of the game. Now you could drive through those and stuff, but even that can just do enough to change up how this arena is going to play out pretty rapidly. Make people have to get closer to each other. Take care of the guys who want to stay across the arena from you with lasers shooting you, from way far away, and make them engage closer. So there's a lot of things that can be done that these little 1-point weapons can really affect the arena state quite a bit.
Yeah, Howard's Explosion guy brings up one of the best uses of them is, keep in mind, even if you're in a parking lot, if you're driving straight 5 times, then you're not making any rolls in general to lose any control. But if I've dropped even some spikes out there that you don't want to drive over, and I forced you to make 2 maneuvers, one to go to the right of those spikes and then another one to come back left to go around them, I forced you to roll the dice twice, and every single dice roll has a possibility of taking control away from you.
Control and tires. And...
yeah. And if I ever force you to go out of control because I've told you make some turns you didn't want to turn, well, then you're a lot easier to shoot at, and you might crash into a wall or a spike or a mine or something else I've already put out there too.
Right, or even it makes them make a decision, right? They
Yeah.
they are going to just drive straight over it and charge at you anyway, but that's a decision they had to make to risk whatever the effects are of that piece.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there is a penalty associated with all of these. The mines are going to explode on you. The spikes are going to tear up your tires some. The oil slick's going to make you make a driving roll and automatically add 2 skids to the results. You're
Yep.
automatically going to lose 2 control just driving over it. And making those decisions are part of what makes the game interesting. So you can immediately add decisions and more interesting things to happen to your game just by adding one of these 1-point weapons to your car. It's a really good way to throw people off of what they are expecting. Even in, like I said, even in open parking lot battle, if 2 or 4 players each have 1 drop weapon equipped, that's 8 things that could be out here in this map, because each one's going to have 4 things that they could drop somehow out here, which even on an open map complicates it. And if it's a bigger scenario or there's more stuff out here, it can complicate it a lot.
Yeah.
I think we even on the time I most effectively used drop weapons was when we were doing one of our double drum arena events last year. And there's that choke point in the center where the 2 drums connect. And once it opened up, I dropped a whole lot of spikes right around that, and that between that and someone wrecking there, it made getting through those parts of the arena, that center corridor choke point of the arena, really difficult. People had to slow down, people had to maneuver, and when they were doing that, they were targets for other people.
Yeah, we just played a double drum game over the weekend, and we had 2 players that brought spikes and a player that brought a slab. And at one point, there was 7 spike cards and the slab on one half of one of the double drums, which made driving there ridiculously more complicated than just if it was just a circle you had to drive around to not hit walls. And I did end up bumping into a slab at speed 1. I slowed down a lot because I knew I was going to have to hit it. So that totally controlled what I did in the game by just putting a little bit more complications into the choice of where do I go, how fast do I do it, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and most of these are like I said, are 1-point cards. So it's if you can fit a spare point into your build, you can make the map more interesting for everybody else. And more interesting, by more interesting, I mean more dangerous. But yeah, it's a matter of making other people make decisions by where you put these things out in the arena. You get to control the map. You get to design the cover or the obstacles, basically, as the game goes on, which is a really interesting wrinkle. If people are getting used to oh, this guy always plays the long range build, it's like, cool, well, I'm just going to put a foam dropper on my car this time. Or if you've watched our streams a lot, you can always take the slab and never use it, like Hunter. We'll get to the slab in a bit. So Hunter was a big fan of the slab. He put it in most of his builds when we were doing matches. The slab, let me find it here. We'll start off with it. The slab is right here. Can you get to focus? There we go.
There it is.
The slab is actually a piece. It's a structure card that goes on the rear of your car, and it costs 3 points, so it's more than all the rest of them. But it acts as armor, or acts as structure for the back of your car. Will soak damage sitting back there.
Yep.
But, and this is probably where we came up with. We already had a piece that was working after movement points, and it was the slab.
Yep.
By design, you can drop the slab token behind your car and flip the space down after any movement point. So at any point, you can eject the structure off the back of your car, drop it in the arena as an obstacle. It's this obstacle here.
Specifically as a wall. It has the wall icon on it.
It has a wall, right.
If you hit that slab, you're not pushing it out of your way.
Right, yeah. Walls cannot be pushed, so it is there. Now, it has a hit point value, or has a damage value, so it can take damage and be destroyed. Well, it provides partial cover, and it's there. Now, Hunter always took this and always talked up the slab real big.
Yeah.
And for 6 months, he never fired it once. He never used it, but he always talked about it. And then twice in 1 week, we were doing the 2-player, the small playmats, the city block playmats. We were doing 2-player duels on them. And he finally, like, I was never worried about it because he never used it. And then we were in a corner, and he like crosses in front of me, and for the first time in his life, actually drops the slab.
Yeah.
And there was a wall here, like, and he'd like turn. So I had the choice of wall or slab was the only way I could go. And he did that to me twice. But yeah, so this is a collision waiting to happen. Provides cover. It is the most substantial one out there of these things because it can't be pushed like anything else. That is just a stop when you hit it, or you'll bounce off just like it was an arena wall. You'd be bouncing off of it, colliding with it, taking all the damage for it. You may blow through it if you do enough damage, but it's going to be a problem.
Jimmy,
And
you need to equip drag chutes when you fight against people with slabs. That way you can stop.
well, he'd never
Yep.
used it in months.
Yep.
And I always made fun of him for it. So I think I finally wore him down.
Or
made
you were
him- made him
being
actually fight his
lulled into a false sense of security.
I'm sure that's how he tells the
The
story.
long game.
That one time though, right? Just the once.
Yep.
Welcome on in, Go Shock 235. Good to see you. So yeah, the slab is a good one. It has the added bonus, I think, of it counts as structure. It's got 5 points on it. I believe the card has that on there. Let me pull the card back in front of me here. Where's the card?
Yeah, it's got the 5
Oh,
durability icon on the bottom.
Yeah, it's got 5 durability. But there's nothing in the rules that says that damage that has applied to it here is applied to the token when it's dropped.
Yep.
So you can use almost all the durability and then eject it as an obstacle, and it will have fresh points there. Now, if you like hyperrealism, you can house rule that differently in your game. You can make a transfer over, however you want to do it. But it's a good piece because that one actually costs more than 1 point because it does that double duty. Like, it is a piece of structure for you until you decide to deploy it.
Yeah.
So that's the most expensive one there, but it's got a lot of utility. Some of the other ones we've got, let's start with the smallest ones, which is the mine droppers. So we've got 2 mine droppers. Get them both up here. We've got the concussion mine dropper and the fire mine dropper. There we go. So those will drop you get 4 mine tokens, and they will drop either the side or the rear, wherever this weapon is equipped, of your car, centered on that firing arc marker. They're relatively small tokens. They're only about yay big. And you can see they've got symbols on them. In this case, this one has a control, a fire symbol up at the top, and a damage symbol with a number in it right there. So when you drop those out, they just sit out here. If you come into contact with one of these, you lose the rest of the movement point that you were currently using. You stop there as soon as you come into contact. You lose the rest of the movement point. And then whatever symbols are on the mine, I'll put both of them out here so you can see both of them, affect that side of your car. So the concussion mine has 2 control markers and 2 damage. So you would automatically lose 2 control. And now this is not a collision, so it doesn't follow any of the collision rules other than you stop when you contact the token and you lose the rest of the movement point. The concussion mine, you would lose 2 control, and you would take 2 damage to that side of your car. And then this token goes away. For the fire mine, you lose 1 control, take 2 damage to that side of your car, and that side of your car is now on fire. And like all other things, if that side of your car is already on fire, it just becomes more damage. But those 2, they're the smallest ones out there, but they've got some pretty serious ramifications, especially the control ramifications, if you run into them. So people, even though they are easy to miss, people are encouraged to miss them. because they can be significant. So those are very good, very well used, especially in choke points if you want to really make someone slow down or navigate around a specific area and such.
The other thing you have to keep in mind when you're talking about any of these dropped weapons is there's two kinds, effectively, like Jimmie said. There's tokens and there's cards. Cards,
Right.
you only take the effect of sometimes if you end a movement point on them. So, right, if I drop that in front of Jimmie and it's half a car length away and Jimmie slides forward once and then rotates his car a bunch into a turn, he might miss it. But I forced him to maybe make a D3 or D4 turn to avoid those spikes. But with a token, you don't have the option of turning off of it, because when your car is moving forward along that car length, if you tap it at any moment, then you've interacted with it and your your movement stops. So the only way to avoid some of those tokens is to do the slide maneuver. But if you position it correctly, a slide close enough to your opponent, they might not even be able to slide without touching that token in some way and getting affected by it.
Right, and it's more likely you can pull that sort of thing off with the variant rule, where you are dropping them after movement points,
Yeah.
and in the rules where the base rules where you're doing it as a weapon fire. But yeah, so these are easier to avoid, but they can be fairly significant. How it's your exposure guy says, if you don't have control, it does damage to your tires, correct? Yeah, if you have to lose control and you don't have it, you will take tire damage for those. For everyone you can't spend. And if they contacted it as part of a turn, well, you're going to stop your movement. So you still may have been engaged in a turn at that point. So you would still run the risk of doing a spin out.
Yeah.
If you contacted it during a turn. If you're just moving straight, you don't do any spin outs if there was no turning action going on. Jimmie isn't on fire. Not currently. It's summer in Texas. Being on fire would cool him off. That's not entirely wrong. My phone has been going off with the heat advisories all day today. It is warm out there, and I have a weekend of outdoor things planned that I'm not sure I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, so those are the two mines: your fire, your concussion mines. One is heavy control loss. The other one is control and fire. So if you have someone who's not perennially on fire, like I appear to be, then you might want to use those. Next up, we'll go to the next line of them. My favorite is the spike dropper. So we'll get the card up over here. We'll block this off so we can focus on it. There we go. So spike dropper there is, you put it on any of the three sides, drops a spike card. You get 4 spike cards to go with it. And those cards, hold up here next to it, are a drive over hazard. And, it's upside down. They're a drive over hazard. They do not provide any cover. But you can see in the top corner there, they've got 2 black dice. So if you end a movement point on this card, you have to make a driving roll. And that driving roll will consist of anything else that is involved in the driving roll. If there's terrain or other stuff, in any turns you've done. But this adds 2 black dice to that driving roll. Now the black dice have 1 damage on them, 1 shield/skid on them, and 4 wrenches, which when you're making a driving roll, a wrench is tire damage. So you're adding a 4 out of 6 chance that this is going to do tire damage to your car. And on a driving roll, the star doesn't do anything, but the swerve will. So the skid will. So you've got a 5 out of 6 bad things are going to happen on this die during a driving roll. You had 2 of those to anything else they're doing just by if they end their movement at any point covering that card. So I really like this because it is almost a guarantee that if they stop on it, if they don't avoid this thing, they're going to take some sort of complication to their driving that turn.
Yep.
And that can be just if they almost get off of it, then they're still rolling it. And if they're also on a terrain that adds other dice to their pool, they may be doing stuff. Or if they were turning onto it, it's going to add to everything. But even just driving straight over it, if they don't get out completely off the card, that is potentially 2 tire damage or 2 control loss. just from ending on that card. So they're very encouraged to take some other route. And if they don't, they're very likely to take some damage. That's why that one's my personal favorite drop weapon.
Yeah, and keep in mind if you're not playing in a parking lot, right? If you're playing on the road tiles or one of the mats we've made, city blocks or play mats that have dirt and roads and other things, or you've designed your own situation where you've got road and non-road, then you determine the difficulty of driving on all of the non-road terrain. So if you're saying this road crosses a bunch of mud and the pavement's the only way to get across the mud without like having a problem, and I drive across that bridge first and drop spikes on it, well then you have a very difficult decision to make. If you're going to stay on the road, maybe blow your tires out, or drive off into the mud and maybe lose control and skid around and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Howitzer explosion guy. Edge case, if you have one control, hit the mine during a turn, take away 2 control, and then do a driving roll and get 3 shields, like skids. Is it a D4 fishtail or a D3 because the shields from the roll? So you would have had to have hit the mine while making a maneuver for that to have happened. So you have to be turning into the mine, but it could happen. So what would happen? As soon as you contact the mine, you would stop your maneuver. I would say at that point, you resolve the mine first.
Yeah, that's the timing is as soon as you touch a mine, you do all the mine things. Then you would complete your turn by your maneuver roll. So your maneuver roll controls how many skids and how many control. The mine affects that by taking control away from you earlier, but the mine doesn't add control loss to the maneuver roll.
But if you so what he's saying is you only had one control left, and you hit the mine during a maneuver. You're taking 2 skids. You only have 1 control to lose. So if you lose a second control, you're going to take tire damage from it, right?
Yes.
Will you make a skid because you contacted the mine while making a maneuver, or do you just ignore the fishtail results until you're making the actual maneuver roll?
The maneuver roll can force you to wipe out like that, to fishtail like that. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you would only take the extra tire damage. You would not take any fishtailing from hitting the mine itself.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like if you get hit by a rocket during the combat part of the game, and you would lose 2 control or whatever from some effect combo, and you only have 1 to lose. That doesn't make you immediately skid out of control. It just takes away all your control. So yeah, the only time you ever do that, maybe you fishtail and flip over, is as the result of a maneuver roll.
Got it. Question answered, Howitzer? So the spikes they're my favorite drop weapon personally. Next up, we've got oil jets. Get both of these up here this time. All right, so we've got oil jets here. Again, 1 point, and drops another card here. You can see this card is a drive over, and causes no line of sight issues, no cover issues. I'll flip these back. So these read, when your car is overlapping this card and you make a driving roll, add 2 skids to the result of that roll. So same sort of deal as before. Is that going to cause, knock some cards off the table here? That's going to cause automatic 2 control loss if you end on this card at all. So no risk of tire damage, but certain risk of control loss, because if you're on it, you're going to have to make the driving roll. This came up in a forum discussion earlier. We talked about this before. If you are driving, usually at the end of each movement point, there is a timing space for a driving roll. Most of the time, there is 0 dice in that pool, so you don't have to roll anything when you're just moving straight or making slight turns.
Yep.
However, if you are on terrain that adds a die to the driving roll, like most terrain levels are marked with a number of blue dice that they will affect the driving roll by. So any movement point, they are adding that to the driving roll. This is the same thing. any movement point you end on this, it adds 2 automatic skids to that driving roll. So even if you weren't going to be rolling any dice, you were still getting those 2 skids, just for purposes of having been on that card, ending a movement point on that card.
The
Which
other
can make this very. Go
sorry.
ahead.
The other important
No, go
thing to think about is you add dice to your driving roll based on your highest terrain level. So if your
Right.
car is driving off the road, right, and half on, half off, you're on 0 level road, but you might be on 1 or level 2, shoulder. But hazards that stack are all cumulative. So if
Yes. And
somehow
the cards with these pink borders are hazards.
yes, if somehow Jimmie had laid down spikes and I had laid down oil close enough to each other for your car to drive over rough ground, which is, let's just say, terrain level 1, and hit both of those, all the hazards are going to accumulate into dice and other results they add to your roll. So,
Right. So this was difficulty 1 terrain. That'd be 1 blue die for the terrain, 2 black dice for the spike cards, and 2 automatic skid results to
Yep.
the roll. So that could end up with 5 skids, which could wipe out your entire control pool, just by ending 1 movement point
Yep.
there.
and the maneuver dice are on top of that. It's all one roll.
Exactly. And that's just if you're going straight through it. If you're trying to turn through this, if you thought, oh, maybe I can get through there, and you miscalculated, and you ended up just nicking both of them, then yeah, you've got a problem. And suddenly that bridge you may be about to go off that you thought was a safe place because it was not over the rest of the terrain and stuff. So yeah, they can compound very quickly. And if you have multiple people, like Will said, if you have multiple people each taking one of these in a 4-player game, that could be up to 16 things out there on what started off as an empty parking lot.
Yeah.
If there's already terrain and obstacles, that can get really hairy really quick with everyone trying to control various parts of the arena, encouraging this and wanting to dominate their sections or whatever. So yeah, they can be very effective if used well, or even if 1 or 2 people are only 1 or 2 people are using 1 each. You can definitely start exerting control over areas of the arena that you're not even in. Maybe making a no man's land over here, so people want to fight over here. And so if you can shrink the size of the arena to the safe spots, by making other parts of it hazard, and then your builds that have, your flamethrowers and melee weapons and things like that are all close range aren't as much of a problem because you've made the arena smaller. Everyone wants to be everyone's choosing to be in close range with you rather than deal with the obstacles.
Yeah.
So it can be very effective on those builds where you want people to close with you. You just make the arena smaller, basically. So yeah, that's oil slicks, the very control base, whereas spikes are a little more damage base. So those are oil jets, mine droppers, spike droppers. The other 2 are not quite the same. They're a little bit of different vein. The next one is a smoke emitter. Drop these up over here. This way. So yeah, you get 4 smoke cards, and they are cards like this. These are drive over, but you notice these are drive over, but they are partial cover.
Yeah.
So there's no terrain, there's no dice or terrain effects for these. You can just drive through it, but it does basically let you lay out some cover on the board, which again doesn't necessarily keep people from being a part of the arena, but it still shrinks it some in that they are going to be taking penalties if you are on the other side of that smoke. You're effectively limiting their shots some, and again making them want to close with you. And these again go right out to the side of your car like that, or right out to the rear of your car like this, and leave the smoke trail. Like if you want to fire them all off at once, you could have a trail of smoke cards, 1 after each movement point. So 1 would be there, and then you go a movement point forward. Get it on the screen here. So say you drop the first smoke card there, you'd move forward. The next smoke card would be here. You move forward. We'll just use other, because these are all the same size of cars. So
Yeah.
again, this is if you use the alternate rules and drop them all in one turn where you're going speed at least 4, you've suddenly covered, you know, 4 car lengths of space and created a obstacle of, in this case, for the Smoke's case, partial cover that goes across the middle of the arena. So whole lot of shots suddenly get some sort of cover going on for them.
And if anybody's not familiar with how line of sight works in Car Wars, if you can draw a line from the target to the attacker, any line from any point of their base, the square part of the base, not the little bumps on the front or back, that crosses a thing providing cover, then that grants cover to them. So it doesn't matter if only 25% of the car is actually covered by that smoke, as long as any line, so front of the car, the back of the car, or whatever, crosses it,
So
then it still
if
counts.
Green's trying to shoot at Red here, right? He says, "Yeah, I've got a shot at you right there." Red can say, "Yes, but I can draw a line that goes from part of my car to part of your car. That goes through this obstacle right here, which gives me cover. I get to claim the cover bonus for it."
Yeah.
And that's part of our kind of snapshot abstraction system of how, because we do movement and firing in groups, there's a little bit of abstraction as some point during the turn this shot happened, right? So it's conceivable that at some point this was effective in making that block. So that's how we're doing the abstraction on it. So yeah, if you've got, say, if these were 2 smoke cards, Green says, "Yeah, I've got a shot." And Red says, "Yeah, but I can draw a line from here to here that goes through this one, and from here to here that goes through this one. I get 2, assuming this was a smoke card. I get to claim 2 partial cover bonuses, which is 2 free shield results on my defense roll, which starts depleting the attack values rather rapidly. So yeah, that's Smoke Emitter is good for dropping cover out there, and again, shortening those distances or adding to your defense by staying on the opposite side of it.
Yeah, and interestingly, you can have the smoke or the foam, which I'm sure you're going to talk about eventually, on the same side of your car as a weapon. And so you could fire the weapon first and then drop the smoke after.
Yeah.
Using the core rules, and then you've gotten all the benefit of shooting, but then anybody shooting back at you is going to have to shoot through that smoke.
Right. So you can immediately deploy some cover after your shot. So you can take your big shot with your large weapon, and then basically deploy a smoke screen.
Yeah.
Which effectively reduces the damage that's coming into you. Which I will note, even if you're out of control, you still get the cover. You still get those free shield results and the cover bonuses.
Yep.
So even if you're out of control, you could deploy a smoke screen and still get some defense from it. Depleted uranium Cowboy really likes oil. Yeah, oil is great for just, especially if you play with people who live on the edge of their control markers most of the time.
Yep.
A little bit of oil will go a long way with that. And the last dropped weapon we have here actually is the foam nozzle, which I'll bring up over here. Get it in the frame along with foam token. So again, all these are going to have 4. This is a wall-sized token that is a light obstacle and full cover, which full cover provides 3 free shield results when it's out there,
and entirely blocks the line of sight if you can't draw any line between the 2 cards. It doesn't cross it.
That's true. It's full cover. So if the scenario we've got here is this, and Green can't draw a line to Red that doesn't go through that foam marker in somewhere from square box to square box, then he doesn't have a shot on Red at all. So if Red just dropped this, Red shot and then dropped this, Green literally has no shot, no way to actually shoot at him there. That is, he cannot take a shot because there is no line of sight to the vehicle. Really effective as a immediate deploy for shielding If you've got, say, if you're about to get wrecked by this guy who's got a really big gun on that side of his car, you can fire that off and boom, nothing. And if you're doing it during the firing phase, no one's moving, so you're safe till next. That has protected you entirely from green this round. Now it is a light obstacle, which means I believe when you have a collision with a light obstacle, the light obstacle just pops and goes away. So
Yeah.
you can drive through that to destroy it, unlike the smoke, which will just stay out there. But this is full cover, so it's either completely blocking the shot, or if you're just a little bit off, or if green was just a little bit ahead, he can still get a shot on you here because he can draw a line that doesn't go through it. But you can draw a line that does go through it, so you get to get the cover bonus for it, which is for full cover is 3 full shields. So even if he doesn't entirely block the shot, it's still going to take it's still like 3 points off the damage that shot does. So again, can be really effective for blocking those things. It's a little bit easier to get rid of than the smoke, because all someone has to do is bump it and it goes away. But this one I think is among the best for the reactive shots on your own turns, and second shot to throw up immediate defenses after everyone's already been moving and everything. So this one I think is one of the most effective ones under the original deployment rules, where it takes a firing action to deploy. I think foam is a very good defensive option, not as much battlefield control because it goes away easy, but it's a very good defensive option to have in your pocket as a immediate just wall of obscurement there.
The other thing is,
Whereas,
though, if you are using the alternate rules and you have 3 other opponents and you don't want to get shot by the ones that are on the right side of your car, right? You just want to eliminate people from being able to attack you. You can still fire off that foam after your last movement point, so it would be sitting there during the combat section. It would block your shots, but if you just want to focus on one opponent and kind of shut the other ones out of being able to attack you, it's still a completely viable option.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's easily one of the most defensive options out there, with the slab potentially being the most defensive option. But the slab is a single shot, and the foam is all the rest of them will get a pool of 4. And that's the other thing to note about all these other dropped weapons is they all give you a pool of 4 cards or tokens to place. That's their limit. If you want more than that, you need to add a second one onto your car, basically.
Yep.
So while you can on the alternate rules just drop after every movement point, you can deplete that real fast, which is fine because you control the big area, you control the tight area with it. You set up a barrier or something like that. It's a good way to rapidly section off something, even if you only drop every other one. That's still pretty effective. If I was dropping say spikes every other movement point, that could turn out pretty quickly to be. I'm just going to use general cards here. But say we dropped a spike, we did a move, we dropped, we'll call another spike, we did a move, we dropped another spike, we'll pretend the slab's a spike. So while that is a little more open and you can get through here, it's still something that people are going to have to navigate around. It's still limiting their options a fair amount and blocking a lot of these things off. And if it's smoke, it's not affecting their driving, but it's giving a lot of extra points of cover around the board.
Yeah.
And that is, if I put another one roughly the same amount behind it there, you're talking a third of the map has this line across it now. While there's gaps in it, that's pretty significant still. And they're either hazards or they are either hazards you need to avoid, or they're obstacles that are interfering with shooting or something along those lines. So all of these are, for 1 point, you can do this. Well, put one on each side of your car. You could do that for 2 points. Especially in a bigger game, I think they are really good options to fill out your build. In a small point game where you're trying to get value out of every single point you're taking, perhaps not quite as much as you may not want to give up having that one big gun or a second gun in a lot of cases. But at bigger builds, I think they're very good options to fit into somewhere in your build to have that battlefield control option in there.
The last benefit of them is the subtlest. They all have 2 durability. When you take internal damage, you flip a card. If it says weapon, and let's say you have the buffalo gun or the thresher or some 5-point, big chunky gun on the right side of your car, and a smoke launcher, the smoke launcher is a weapon. So the smoke launcher can take the damage from the internal damage listed as weapon and preserve your big card. So like any 1-point weapons are good at that. So if you like put a thresher on and a 1-point machine gun, that 1-point machine gun can act as a bit more life for that big thresher. But these have that added benefit of having 2 durability, so they're pretty survivable. And they give you that interesting option for mid-game if you do have a chance to drop spikes or something like that. But they're still doing their job as long as there's another weapon on that side. They can eat that damage for that weapon.
Exactly. They can soak that damage, and they can provide battlefield control, or even just the threat of battlefield control.
Yep.
If you're loaded with spikes on the side of the back of your car, people maybe not going to be, as long as you remind people you've got them,
Yep.
People maybe not going to tailgate you quite as much. As long as you occasionally use them, Hunter. You can't.
Yeah.
You do have to.
Gotta drop them every once in a while.
Look,
Keep people
drop
honest.
them every once in a while. Keep to make sure that you know that they know you'll use them. But yeah, so that is any thoughts that y'all have now. Like I said, all these drop weapons are going to be in one of the upcoming single player sets we're releasing. So this August, I believe, we're releasing the purple orange 2-player set, and then following that, we're going to start releasing 1-player expansion sets that add. Most of them are re-releases of cards that are in some of the Kickstarter expansions that came out. That came out in like 4-player packs. These are going to be like 1-player packs of those weapons, so you can just add them to your set, or if you want to add, if you're want to fill out a full 2-player set, you could add 2 of them to your sets. This one, most drop weapons are going to be in one called Tailgate Trouble,
yeah. Also,
Tailgate Trouble.
All those sets have cards that appeared in weird places. Like the first playmat had a few cards, and so those playmat cards are getting reprinted in one of these new reprint sets.
Yeah, like Tailgate Trouble is going to have all the drop weapons cards, plus one of the suspension cards from the playmat, and I think the cards that came in the map tiles,
the road tiles, yeah,
the road tiles set. So a couple of the sets that had like 1 or 2 cards in them, those are being rolled into some of these other sets, and then some of these sets come out that are going to be coming out are going to be new things. Like I believe we've talked. Let me look at the website real quick.
We've announced both of them on CarWars.
Okay.
So SJGames.com, I believe.
Yeah. So Sonic Strike, I was thinking of, which is all Sonic weapons, which is not something that's in the game currently. That are going to be out there. So some of them are new, some of them are reprints. So read the boxes, but they're going to be coming out in these new repackaged forms that are more accessible. They're more, it's just a single player set, so you can just get the one set, and you can customize your set a little more the way you like it, and your buddy can customize their set the way they like it. Or completionists, you can all get all of them. But this is a feature we're trying. This we're calling them the deep drive, to kind of highlight one specific element of the game and kind of talk about it and talk through it and strategies and things people may have missed or not thought about, or things that we thought about while we were developing it, and those sorts of things. So if you guys like this, let us know either in comments here on YouTube or come on our Discord and let us know. And let us know what elements you'd like to see more of, or areas you're not quite sure how things work or why we made some things. We can maybe do another follow-up deep drive on those subjects in Car Wars. And these are all going to be for 6th edition. We're going to do 6th edition stuff because that's the edition we're currently publishing and that I know. I don't really know all the details of the older ones, and I'm not going back to learn them at this point. But yeah, we'll be glad to do some more of these if they were interesting to you guys. Do you have any more questions about the drop weapons right now?
I'm going to add one tiny little just bonus piece of content. dropped weapons is also the only place currently that you can get a status effect card. There's a paint grenade in there that puts a status. It's not a drop weapon, so it doesn't really fit into this discussion. But the drop weapon
But I do
pack
have
and Tailgate Trouble include that paint grenade that does a status, which is a different weird thing. And both Gonzo Gear and Sonic Strike, the two sets coming up that have new cards in them, they're going to each introduce a new kind of status. And they're going to modify the status rules in a slight way to kind of expand them. Because right now, the status rules only affect the sides of your car. But with those new status effects, they can also affect your entire car. So they'll go into your crew area instead of on the side of your car like the paint currently does.
Right. But yeah, the paint grenades are a good option for sidearms. Basically, it's another grenade type. It does some damage, but more importantly, on a wrench result, it paints that side of your car, which puts one of these paint status cards on that side of your car, which is the only status that is currently in the game.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have some more soon. But yeah, and paint is a pretty nasty status actually. It says before making an attack, you may pay 1 ace token to roll 1 black die. On a wrench, you return this paint card to the supply. So, but if you need to make an attack and the paint card is still on there, the defender adds 2 blue dice to their defense roll when attacked by a weapon equipped to the painted side.
Yep.
So if you lob a paint grenade at somebody, it hits and paints their side. Anything they shoot out of that side of their car at anybody, the defender's getting 2 blue dice to add to their defense roll. Because they can't see to shoot. And that's going to stay until they can get rid of it, which they can try to. And a wrench on a black die, again, that's a 2/3 success rate. So 4 out of 6 success rate of actually getting the paint off enough to take the shot. So better than even odds they're going to get rid of it, but it can still be a pain in their anatomy to
their tailpipe.
Paint the tailpipe to get that paint off, and that's only if they have ace tokens. If they don't have any ace tokens left, they can't get rid of it.
Paint is a good way to annoy people that have ace token builds because it's going to make them use their ace tokens in ways they don't want to use them.
Remove paint's not a fire action. The card says before making an attack, you can pay an ace token to try to remove it. So it's part of making the attack. You can try to remove it. So you could do that twice a turn, I would say, because before making the attack, you can try to remove the attack. So you get 2 options to try it on the side that you're doing that. But yeah, that is with the pack. It's not specifically a dropped weapon, but it comes in there, and it's again one of those things that doesn't do a lot of damage directly. It does a little bit of damage. A green die, a red die, and 1 built-in damage. So it is at least 1 point of damage going to happen if you hit them with it. But again, 2/3 chance of applying painted to that side of their car. So again, it's one of those things that status can be very effective, or at least make them burn ace tokens.
Yeah, and those red and green dice are gonna show wrenches often enough that paint's gonna be fairly reliable.
Right. So yeah, it's another fun thing that is less damage centric, but still pretty effective in trying to deal with stuff like that. I think one other thing that was in the set, we're talking about those cards that's not exclusively drop weapon, is the punch bumper. It's a upgrade to your frame. There we go. But yeah, when the front or rear of your car touches a heavy obstacle or a wall, an explosion result occurs to that obstacle in addition to normal collision damage. So if that's a car, they're going to lose a control. When you smack extra control, when you smack
+1
that
control
side of your car. That is a frame upgrade. Can be useful. Not my personal favorite frame upgrade. I prefer, if I'm going to be doing a frame upgrade, the ones that help me weather the collisions more than enhance the collisions.
Yeah, you're not reckless enough.
Not usually.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
But that card
But,
does give you a new way to build a ramming car effectively.
Right. You
Yeah.
can, if you want to be on the aggressive side with that, you can add more to the effects there. Not the damage, but the control loss, which is something you never want to be inconsiderate about, because you add ramming is colliding with somebody automatically loses a control. If you got a punch bumper, they automatically lose another control. If you then bounce off of them and drive ahead of them, and then on your firing turn you drop an oil slick, which is guaranteed 2 more control loss if they touch it, you can quickly have them out of control by the time shooting comes around, and then lay into them with your weapons and they don't get any defense dice.
Yep.
So you can compound all of these things to really send people out of control quickly.
And you can,
the closer you are to them, the more likely these obstacles are going to hit them.
and you can double tap collisions with people fairly easily if you have enough movement points. You can hit them, separate, and then contact again, and now you've hit them twice. So that would be 4 control loss if you hit them with the right side of your car.
I could definitely see something, if we go to the top Brandon real quick here, where you you tap them in the front side to get the collision, the punch bumper. You slide away. You slide back into them again for another collision. Without the punch bumper this time, it's third control loss. You slide away. You drive forward one. You drop an oil slick off this side of your car here. And then you drive off this way. They can try to slide if they still got any control left, but if they don't slide and have to go forward, then that's more control loss even, because they're going to hit that oil slick. So especially if you're doing near a wall or anything like that, you can quickly compound the control loss and those sorts of things. But just adding, just a little extra hello to them as you smack them and drive off. And then if you're out of control and shooting comes around, even better for you. Your guns are more effective. So a lot of different ways that just adding a point or two to your car for these weapons can enhance a lot of the builds and a lot of the way you play the game, and make the arena more interesting than even if you're playing in just flat open arenas, not heavily built up scenarios or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think these are why I wanted to start with these is I think they're overlooked too often, because people go, oh, that's not much damage, I'm not gonna worry about it.
Yep.
And I think that causes them to get overlooked. What things that can give you a lot of actual strategy and complications on the board, and make a much more interesting game for just a couple points of your build. All right, so looks like we don't have any other questions. So appreciate you all coming and hanging out with us. Will, thanks for chiming in and hanging out as well.
Anytime.
And if you guys want to see any more of this, or want to continue this discussion, hop over to our Discord. I've got a Car Wars 6E channel there. You can go ahead and debate and talk about this stuff with, share your builds or stories, anything like that. Otherwise, we will see you all next week here on SJGames Live. And we'll see you then. Take care, Will. Take care, folks.
Yep. Bye.
When we're going to play a Car Wars live stream again, we have a lot of people traveling this summer, so probably at least not till after July 4th when we start getting people coming back to town. And we got to work out between conventions and stuff. So It's been a little bit of figuring out things that we can do when we don't have everybody around that's normally here. But yeah, we will plan to do another live stream game at some point this summer. All right. We'll catch you all folks later. Thanks for joining us in SJ Games Live. Take care, everybody.